Good evening. Welcome to a very special program. I'm Vishnu Shom. Now, we haven't forgotten about the plight of Indian students who have to cough up 1,750 pounds, that's 1,81,000 rupees, for a compulsory 10-day government-mandated quarantine in a hotel facility when they land in the United Kingdom where they're going to study. Why? Because India is on the UK's red list for entry, so even double vaccinated Indian students who clear RT-PCR tests before they go and after they arrive will get into what some call a jail stay. Imagine being a 19-year-old stuck in a room for 10 days even though you don't have any COVID at all. So we did a program on this a few days back, bringing to you the concerns of Indian students who say they will be out of pocket with this huge expense. And Adar Poonawalla was watching, and so he decided that he just had to step in to try and help these students. Now with Adar's personal donation of 10 crore rupees. And this is from him alone. This is not from the Serum Institute of India. There is a plan in place to ensure that the expenses of Indian students towards quarantine in the United Kingdom are covered. Now, to be sure, there are strict rules, and while we are the messengers to help this along, the real implementation for the collection will be done by Keto. Utilization of the donations will be done by the NGO Sanmat. Now, we also encourage donations beyond Adar Poonawalla for this project. These are received by Keto, these donations which you make, and they shall be disbursed by Sanmat, which will shortlist eligible students and provide necessary financial assistance to them. There are a couple of different rules. You'll find it all on the NDTV website. For example, some students may already be getting partial assistance from the universities. Will you be eligible to get the rest? There are students who are on student loans, who are on scholarships, who need the funding more perhaps than others. So there are rules that govern them as well. So you can read about all of this, how it works, at ndtv.com/ and unlock education. That's what it's all about. So before we move on, let's tell you how it actually works in the United Kingdom. Now, at the moment, entry into the UK for students and for others, in fact, is governed by red, amber and green lists for that country. If you are on the red list, you must, before you enter, take a COVID test, book a quarantine hotel package. This costs, as we mentioned, just under 2 lakhs and includes 2 COVID-19 tests. At the moment, the majority of people getting visas to the UK are students only, and exceptions are others getting it. So this affects students hard, and you need to complete a passenger locator form so that people know where you are. If you are in the amber list, and now there is hope that India may move to the amber list, we don't know when, then before you travel to England, you must take a COVID-19 test in the 3 days before you travel, book and pay for COVID-19 tests to be taken after arrival in England, complete a passenger locator form, and quarantine, albeit at home or in the place that you are staying, for a period of 10 days. You don't need to go into government-managed hotel quarantine. You can quarantine, but you still need to do that for 10 days. There may be ways to lessen that period. You also need to take a COVID-19 test on or before day 2 of your arrival and on or after day 8. Now, the rules for, and this is bizarre, truly bizarre, the rules for US and EU nationals are different. They don't need to quarantine or take the day 8 test if they are fully vaccinated. And this is what has really irked a lot of Indian nationals. Because if you've got, for example, a vaccine called Vaxzevria, which is essentially what we here in India and in many parts of the world call Covishield, and you have got it in the European Union, then despite being on an amber list, you can go to the United Kingdom and you won't need to quarantine at all as long as you've got 2 doses. But here are our children with 2 full doses of Covishield who will have to pay just under 2 lakh rupees and be in a virtual jail for 10 days, and then have to take many more tests upon arrival in the United Kingdom before they can get out of quarantine. Same vaccine, different rules. Does that make any sense? Many would suggest that that's not the case. And finally, if you are in the green list, you must take a COVID-19 test before arriving, book and pay for a day 2 COVID test to be taken on arrival in England, complete that passenger locator form, but you don't need to quarantine unless the test result is positive. So that's what the dream scenario is. Unfortunately, India way down on that red list. There is a possibility of that changing. When, we don't know. Some suggest that it's going to be a while. On this program, we're going to be talking to MPs from the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, we're going to be talking to students who feel that they just don't have the funds to afford this almost 2 lakh rupee hotel quarantine. And we've actually got 2 students who are in quarantine presently. Jetal Zala and Jill Shet join us now. Thank you, Jetal and Jill, very much for being with us. How difficult has that quarantine stay been for you, Jetal?
So it's our 9th day of quarantine. We came here on 24th of July, and it is really stressful situation for us because it's been 10 days in hotel and we are really locked up here. We can't go out unless there is a security guard who is accompanying us every evening. So where we get 15 days to go out for a walk.
15 minutes, yeah.
But unfortunately, the windows in our rooms doesn't open at all. So we are completely locked in a room, and at the moment we are really stressed out because we just feel that it's a jail for us. We can't even open our doors.
Jill, had the two of you not been together, it would have been even tougher, right? So if you're a single student from India coming over there, living in that room for 10 days and being allowed out for only 15 minutes, it's a jail term.
It is quite a jail term because at least we speak same language and we have known each other since a long time. So it's a nice thing to do, at least. But you know, Wi-Fi connection is not good here. We barely get like 4 KB per second speed. That's not even 2G. And so even talking to our parents would be so hard as such.
Now we've got a couple of images of your room as well. And what about cleaning? Does this hotel which you paid for, does it clean the room every day? Either of you, Jetal?
No, so cleaning is not included in this. They don't enter our room, but we are not even provided with the cleaning appliances so that we can clean our own. So our room looks completely a mess. On the top of that, we are not given any extra bed sheets or any pillows. So since almost like 9 days, we are using the same bed sheets and the bedding things.
So there's nobody to clean it. You aren't given supplies to clean it either. What about food? Jill, how does food work?
So I'm basically Jain, so I don't even consume eggs. And we had described it in our while booking as well that we need something without eggs and vegetarian. While we came here, we were constantly bombarded with things that were containing eggs, and I called up the reception and the person handling food as well, and they were like, just throw it away, don't care about it, just throw the things containing eggs. But you need to understand that the food that is given to us is not even enough for a person. Yesterday night we were just given salad along with a salad and some cold drink, and that's not enough portion for our Indian students.
You were given some bread and salad and that's it, right? That's what you're saying?
Salad with salad.
Salad.
So
right.
The dinner was salad accompanied with salad and cold drink.
Oh, so you were given salad with a different salad.
So the dinner was a Greek salad, which again comes with a bowl of salad, then a few of fruits and a soft drink with that as well. So that was our dinner. And today morning we for our lunch we had just like three slices of pizza, again with a fruit and a soft drink.
And when you landed in the United Kingdom, you were immediately put onto a vehicle and taken to this hotel, right? It's not as if you could roam around or anything. That was all regulated.
So basically, we have to go through immigration.
Yes.
We have to go through immigration, and immigration lines are quite long. We are not allowed to get any water or anything for ourselves, and then we have to board a bus wherein we are not even given water or anything to eat. And fortunately, ours was in Heathrow Terminal 5, so it took us 2 hours to come here. Though the driving time is just 10 minutes, but they'll drop everyone at the different hotels and then drop us. And people who go to actually get city center hotel, they travel for 6 hours and then go. So they are without water for, say, immigration line is for 3 hours and then 6 hours for the
This
traveling
is just
time.
horrific.
So they are without water.
This is unbelievable. Jill, does it irritate you when you get to hear that people from the United States or from the EU can enter the United Kingdom now and roam around quarantine free? In many cases, in some cases, they would have had the same vaccine, Covishield, right? It's called Vaxzevria in the European Union. So if they have 2 doses of Vaxzevria and they come from an amber list country in the European Union, they can now enter the UK and they're free, quarantine free. But you guys have been vaccinated, I presume, with Covishield, right?
Yes, we have both doses done.
So you guys have been vaccinated with 2 doses of Covishield, which is identical to Vaxzevria. It's the same chemical formula, and yet you are in jail and they're free to roam around. Doesn't that infuriate you?
That does, and obviously paying so much cost for the quarantine as well is very hard for us.
So 1750 pounds each, or was it a little less because we shared a room?
Because we shared, we had to pay 1750 for the first person and 650 for the next person. So it was little less for us. But imagine the new students coming don't even know each other so that they can quarantine together. They don't have any groups or something like that. So it would be much difficult for them to even find something like that. And apart from that, of course, we discussed about food, but even COVID protocols tell that hotels should keep their fridges locked. So the small fridge that we get, that's locked. So we cannot even store food because the food we got spoiled.
And one final question to either one of you. If somebody falls unwell on your floor and is COVID positive, and you guys are all right at the moment, you would continue to be in isolation, right?
No. So if there is someone else who is tested positive, so they need to stay again for 10 days and pay the same amount again. But we are free to move out. So if so tomorrow we are ending our quarantine. So if there's anyone else who is tested positive, so we won't be getting out of the room unless we finish our quarantine. But again, if we are tested positive, we need to pay the same amount and then stay for 10 days in this hotel itself.
So you had 2 tests, right? Day 2 and day 8, correct?
Yes, yes.
And you never had, because you've come from a red list country, that test to release, which is on the 5th day, right? You don't have that?
No.
So you guys are clear? Your jail term ends tomorrow?
Yes, finally.
So you must be relieved to get out,
yes,
right?
We are. We were just packing our bag so that we can just go out tomorrow and then have some fresh air to breathe.
And a meal that you actually want to eat. I'd like to thank you both very much for joining us live from London. Thank you both very much indeed. Well, joining us now, a very special guest, Virendra Sharma, Member of Parliament and Chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group on India in the United Kingdom. Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma, for being with us. There are so many Indian students who actually come to the United Kingdom every year. These students are all fully vaccinated, right? They've done RT-PCR tests before coming and RT-PCR tests after coming. Why is it that they are being put into quarantine when nationals from the European Union or America are not?
First, thank you very much for raising this very important issue affecting many young people, mainly the students in Britain. I have raised that point various times. I have written to the government. I agree when this whole practice used for exploitation, money-making exercise, not taking care of those basic facilities of those individuals. It's horrible. I think that most inhuman and racism in the light of vaccine or COVID. It is exploitation, and they are making money out of it without giving the service they need. And as you have yourself raised, those 2 students who have experienced now, they have raised it, the poor service, the way they are treated like criminals and not given the support they need. And most inhuman practice in Britain and we will carry on fighting against that and raising it at the appropriate place.
Mr. Sharma, do you welcome the fact that there are efforts being made now in India to at least partially fund these Indian students, who are otherwise paying £1,750? That's what this program is actually introducing. That there are individuals who are chipping in and who will pay that $1,750. It depends on case to case. But do you welcome the move?
I welcome and thank all those people who has taken that visionary approach to support those young people who may not be able to afford that situation. And I still believe that Indian government and all those institutions who are fighting against racism in Britain need to come together to raise this voice as a racist, discriminatory practice, exploitation by not only the individuals, it's the institutions. The British government is exploiting this situation, forcing those people to pay that such big amount. And I welcome those individuals and the organizations who are taking this initiative. And I will certainly encourage others to contribute into this.
Mr. Sharma, final question to you. Are you at all optimistic about the rules changing?
I don't trust, I must say that publicly, I do not trust and believe the present government of Britain have any visionary approach and have any common sense approach in this matter. And I do not believe that in the very near future, there will be any changes into the practice.
Mr. Sharma, would you agree that, ultimately if red, amber and green are just colors, at the end of the day, if a person is RT-PCR negative not once, but multiple times and fully vaccinated, whichever vaccine that they have, as long as it's WHO approved, right? Or it's likely to be WHO approved, or it is approved in a country, for example, as large as India, then they should be allowed.
I agree. I have raised it in the past, both in the parliament, and I have also written. I do not understand that how, when they leave India, they are positive, they are negative. When they in the plane, they are checked and tested, they are negative. When they arrive at the airport, they are negative. So 3 places at the moment are proved negative. Then still they have the 2 vaccinations. But I do not understand the logic behind it. But unfortunately, the government has taken that lead. And we are raising the objections, but the government is not listening. I must say that. The government is not listening on this point.
All right, sir. Well, I think a lot of the students who are watching this program need spokespersons like you who speak for their interests, because the United Kingdom gains a great deal from India and other countries in the world. The amount that Indian students pay for an undergraduate and a postgraduate degree is many times what a student in the United Kingdom pays. And for them to be treated in this manner, it seems really strange.
I fully agree with that. And I will encourage everybody to write to member of parliaments, write to the government, write the articles, go to the media, wherever it is possible. I would love to receive any correspondence from anywhere in the UK, so that I can take that as an evidence to raise it with the government and with the parliament.
Mr. Sharma, would you take mails, emails from students in India who are watching this program and say that they've got visas or they've got admission in the United Kingdom and they face this predicament? Will you take their messages to the government?
I will welcome anybody in India, in Britain, in Europe, who is going through this situation to write to me, and I will take that on board to make sure that proper representation is done in Britain to highlight their plight in the government level and other institutions.
All right. And sir, we will connect with you after this program is over, find out how students can actually write to you. And if you carry their message forward, I'm sure many would be very, very grateful to you. Thank you, sir, very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Well, we've got others on this panel now. Sanam Arora is founder and chairperson of the National Indian Students and Alumni Union of the United Kingdom. We are also joined by Dr. Anand Sinha, he's a general practitioner in Birmingham in the UK, Dr. Veer Pushpak Gupta with the National Health Service, and we're also joined by Dr. Amit Gupta. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. So we also have Dr. Vikram Talaulikar. Thank you all very much for being with us. Sanam, let me come to you first. Are you being actively contacted by Indian students asking for help because because it's just very expensive for them?
Absolutely. We are being actively contacted by students, and we are actually proactively reaching out to them as well to raise these concerns. Mr. Virendra Sharma, who you just had, is one of our patrons, and so we often work with Mr. Sharma quite closely to take these concerns into Parliament and other stakeholder groups. So students are actively reaching out to us. It is something we've been raising since April. In April, we wrote to the UK Education Secretary, Mr. Gavin Williamson, to at least, if not move India off the red list, then at least reduce the charge significantly or waive it for students. Because as you say, it is an outrageous charge. It's exorbitant, and it's not student-centric at all. And particularly for our current students. So the new ones who are coming in September, at least they've had the sort of, the notice to be able to understand how much the overall cost is going to be. But for our current students, they've had absolutely no understanding of how much they're going to have to pay for this. It's been a sudden charge, it's been an unexpected charge, and I think it's absolutely outrageous that students are having to go through the suffering that Jetal and Jill have articulated earlier on.
You know, before I go across to my other panelists, I just want to repeat what this program is all about. This is a program where, on the basis of the voices of several students, Adar Poonawalla and hopefully others as well have decided to pitch in very substantial funds. Adar Poonawalla has chipped in with 10 crores of his personal funds, nothing to do with the Serum Institute of India. These are his personal funds to help pay either completely or partially for deserving Indian students who may be out of pocket for those quarantine charges, which is just under 2 lakh rupees when they go to the United Kingdom. So that's good news for Indian students. What you need to do is you need to go to ndtv.com/unlockeducation, and you've got lots of details. It's a comprehensive process whereby your case will be assessed. Keto will be collecting the funds, and we've got wonderful partners who are actually assisting in selecting the students who would be able to access these funds as well. So that's what this program is all about. It is very much a response to what many Indian students have been writing into us. Let me go across to Dr. Anand Sinha. Dr. Sinha, I'm just trying to understand, yes, India is on the red list, but if you've got double vaccinated Indian students, and RT-PCR negative reported students both before coming and after coming, then why are they necessarily being made to go through what they are in the United Kingdom?
Thank you for having me on the show, first of all. Look, we have to look at how the process works in the UK. So at the moment, the red list is not only for India, it's for about 30 other countries as well. And the reason the red list was put in place at that point in about April 2021 was because of the variants that were coming in. So predominantly the Delta variant that was coming in from the subcontinent. Now, a 10-day quarantine or a 12-day quarantine in the amber list is what the procedure is if India is bumped down to the amber list.
Right.
The issue with that is that a lot of the amber list countries, when people come in, the quarantine is not very strictly enforced. I mean, there are daily phone calls from the NHS, from the call centers to know whether you're at home or not, but there's no actual visual enforcement of a quarantine. And I think the decision at that time to include a hotel quarantine for red list countries was based on the fact that if variants come in from countries which have not been fully vaccinated, India has a 9% vaccination rate at the moment, then would it affect a population in the United Kingdom, which is about 90% vaccinated? So in view of that, I highly doubt that India will be coming off the red list tomorrow or day after. However, the exorbitant charges are something that really need to be looked at. But I think the other question, you have to look at the pros and cons. So what's going for India right now? The thing that's going for India right now is that your cases have come down significantly from 400,000 a day in April to 40,000. So that's a good thing. The thing that is not going for India right now is that if you are going to let these students come out of quarantine and not be in an institutionalized quarantine, then you need some sort of vaccine passport. Does India have a unified vaccine passport at the moment?
Absolutely.
No, it does not.
It's called COVID.
The only vaccine that is approved in that is Covishield. Unfortunately, Covaxin has not been approved so far.
Yeah, but what about Covishield, which is a large number of students? It's the COVID architecture has been internationally recognized as being really effective. And if you you can scan and you can verify it, it's verifiable. It is actually verifiable with our passports. There's a way of linking your passport with your vaccination through COVID.
So I think
it's official.
What I was going to say was that I think that there needs to be a little bit of a push from the Indian government and the Indian embassy and Indian regiment abroad that is representing the Indian students to try and push for this, because as you said, these vaccine passports are valid and they should be allowed.
Dr. Sinha, can you hear me now? I was trying to get across to you earlier. Dr. Sinha, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can barely hear you. I can hear you now.
All right, great. So, Dr. Sinha, I'm just trying to understand, is there an issue of vaccine passports, which is the problem over here? Because if it is, our CoWIN app actually says when you've been vaccinated, the batch of the medicine you've been vaccinated with, it's linked with your passport and it is verifiable through a scan. So therefore, what's the problem?
There has been some problems actually with this. I'm not very sure about it, to be honest, because being a general practitioner here, we are
right. So I'm just trying to understand, does this make sense to you? A 10-day quarantine?
No, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And just recently, I think yesterday, they have just changed it again, where they say that if you have come in contact with somebody, instead of 5 days, if you come in contact within 2 days, then you need to isolate. So it's a changing, evolving situation, and it's a confusing situation. I'm talking about NHS app. So those who are coming in contact within, for those with COVID positive cases, within 2 days, then there will be a ping to alert that person to self-isolate actually, rather than 5 days, which was there before. So it's changing. It's not mandatory. NHS app is not mandatory. Some people are getting
exactly. So that's strange. If you, as we've been saying, you come from America, you come from the EU, right? You don't have to quarantine if you've been fully vaxxed. Why different standards? Ultimately, red, amber, and green are colors, right? It's what goes behind that matters. Dr. Gupta, let me ask you this, and it's a question perhaps which I should have asked earlier on. If you're a 19-year-old kid and you are alone in a room in a foreign country that you're visiting for the first time, you're not getting the food that you want, apparently bandwidth can be an issue as well. There is a guard who takes you out to catch air for 15 minutes a day. Is that not a problem? Is that not a potential medical issue?
So Vishnu, I absolutely agree. It's a
one second. Let me ask Dr. Amit Gupta. We've got two Dr. Guptas. Let me take that across to your namesake. Dr. Amit Gupta, go ahead.
It's a very common surname. There's so many Dr. Guptas in this country. Vishnu, you're absolutely right. This is very arduous, and it is quite painful to spend 10 days locked up. And one thing which has not been raised is a recent report which was there in the BBC, that if you're a single woman traveler, there have been reports of harassment as well from the guards. Now that has been looked into, and I think that's been resolved. But it is scary to be there on your own, and being chaperoned out. It's not an easy thing, and I think it's quite tough on young people. It is tough on anybody, but it's particularly tough for young people. Very lonely and isolating. I just wanted to talk about the red, amber, green. Now, see, when these categories came, they were designed to prevent the entry of COVID variants. Now, we know in India there's the Delta variant.
Correct.
That is the predominant variant in the UK. So I can't see how having India on the red list is going to help.
Correct.
It is not. It doesn't seem scientifically congruent.
Yeah.
You've got a majority of the Indian population having the Delta variant. Now you've got the same variant in the UK. So what are you achieving in the 10-day quarantine period? That's number one. Number two, it's you've already been tested before you fly, and then you can get tested after you reach here. So if you are negative, you are negative. That is
Precisely.
quite important.
And you know, doctor, it's not just once that you're being tested over here in India.
Yeah.
You're being tested by day 2 of arrival, and in cases day 8 as well, right?
Yeah.
So you are being tested like, I mean, you could end up hurting your nose with the number of those tests.
Absolutely. So that aside, the third thing is that you know, when we talk about Covishield and its acceptance, now there were batches of Covishield, there were batches of vaccines which were produced in India, were given to UK residents, and there was a couple in Malta who
Correct.
were taken off the flight, and there was a big hoo-ha about it. And the British government pressed and leveraged this position and got a lot of people to accept that. Now, I mean, I don't think the Covishield as a vaccine is an issue. I think the issue is with the red, amber, and green, the red being trying to avoid variants. I think that logic falls apart.
Yeah, in fact, I wanted to take that question to Dr. Tolalikar. Sir, this is what I don't understand. One of the concerns, as has been stated in the United Kingdom and the rules as I understand it, is that they're looking out for different variants. Now, Delta has surged across the United Kingdom. It's the same variant. Delta Plus, according to the World Health Organization, is not a variant of immediate concern, right? So therefore, that argument falls apart as well. And we have, to the best of our knowledge, contained Delta Plus. Doesn't represent the threat that many thought it did.
Thank you, Vishnu, for having me on the show. I mean, I agree with most of your other panelists. I think there is a bit of a common sense lacking here, or there's a bit of lack of logic here. When the initial amber, green, and the red list criteria were made, they were based on 4 criteria. One is that the percentage of the population of the country which has been vaccinated. 2, the rate of infection with the variants, the prevalence of any variants there, and finally, sort of countries' access to genomic sequencing and reliable scientific data. So these were the 4 criteria on which they were being distributed into red category, amber category, and the green category. Now the situation is such that India has the same variant that's been the dominant variant in the UK. We also know that at the moment, the cases are actually coming down. So you could argue that it is time now to move India from red to the amber list. And I think that is the focus here, is that they're not doing the red to the amber shift. Why that is? Is it because genomic sequencing is not enough? Is it because the percentage of population is not vaccinated? Now, you could argue this is not enough because the students who are coming in are saying they've had both their vaccines. So you can't really hold that against the students who are coming in. So what I would have suggested in this situation, which is really unfortunate and very difficult situation for these students who've worked hard to come in here, is that if you can't move India from the red to the amber list now because of these criteria, then at least make a separate pathway for these international students, because they can give you a proof of their vaccination.
Correct.
They can show that they've had the 2 vaccine doses. So you can make a pathway so that at least they can be given a bit of benefit of doubt and a bit of leeway in this system so that they can enter easier like an amber category.
Absolutely. There
That would
needs to
my
be a
request to
pathway
the
perhaps
government.
established for these students. Thank you all very much for being with us. We thought we'd do a story explaining why and how it's difficult for Indian students to be coughing up this money after having spent so much on this education in the United Kingdom.
Many students in India dream of going abroad for higher studies. And when they hear the news of that all-important admission, it is celebration time. For journalism graduate, 24-year-old Shashank Kumar, his admission into a good college in the United Kingdom was a source of joy. After his bachelor's degree in Chennai, he has been looking forward to international exposure for his course in politics and contemporary history.
Studying abroad was something that I've been always wanting to for a long time. I mean, back here in India, my dad was in the defense, so I've been around the country. My schooling was all around in different places. So going out of the country and studying was something that was like a newer experience. I've always looked forward to it.
It was actually quite a surprise because this college was something we really wanted him to get it, and we were kind of not too sure because this is one of the courses which was highly in demand, and I was thrilled.
But studying abroad is not cheap. And with Shashank's father having recently retired from the Air Force, financial planning was needed for the travel, stay and course.
My family is going to support me as well as I'm going to be taking an education loan.
And then an unexpected expense surfaced. Compulsory quarantine of 2 weeks in a UK institution. That doesn't come cheap.
Already the whole thing of going abroad, studying in the UK itself is it's somewhat of a very expensive affair. Adding to that, so India being in the red list and having to travel to the UK and quarantining in an institution, so institutional quarantine, it's almost about £1,750 for those 10 days, and it kind of just comes as a shocker suddenly that you've got to shell out so much just for the whole a 10-day period of quarantine.
Especially when this quarantine cost is only for some of the countries like India, which sends now plenty of students abroad actually, but now it's an additional expenditure of around 2 lakhs which we have to incur. For any middle class parent, it is an additional expenditure. Any little more means it has to be supported from extra.
It came as kind of an extra, oops, okay, this is one more, because it's pretty expensive. It's close to, I think 2 lakhs or something.
The hope that there will be a change in policy so that Indian students don't bear the brunt of an unequal approach to the same vaccine.
I really wish this, I'm so glad I'm able to voice out, probably through you, through NDTV, somebody, this something can be done about this.
For now though, for Shashank and his family, and for so many other students, their dream has just become that much more expensive. With DM Kumar, Maya Sharma in Bengaluru for NDTV.
Well, Shashank joins us now with his mother. You just saw them on that story. Firstly, ma'am, a question to you as Shashank's mom, as a parent. Do you welcome this move to actually raise funds which can be used for students to pay for this quarantine? Is that going to help? I don't know if you're necessarily going to get it. It's an application process, but it will help students. I can guarantee
it will definitely. So, Vishnu, I'm so happy. I'm so thankful to NDTV for picking up this issue, because it is an issue. For me, from the point of view of this thing comes as a shock and as a sudden thing wherein, you talk about red lists and amber lists, and I'm wondering, where does this all come from? I'm looking at my son having to spend probably his 2 months of boarding and lodging over a period of 10 days. For me, financially, it just translates to that. So I'm so happy, this initiative is being done, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We hope Shashank can benefit out of it. Thank you so much for taking this up.
Shashank, the prospect of being in quarantine for 10 days, does that daunt you? Is that
yeah, it is kind of daunting. When you hear about it, initially you look at other people, you look at, say, your favorite sports stars, and you hear about them quarantining when they're in different places. And, looking at that itself, it kind of feels, but when it finally hits and you realize that you're also going to undergo the same thing, and the prospect of being locked inside for 10 days without, literally no touch to the outside world. And now that I'm hearing there are problems with the Wi-Fi, problems with food. Yeah, it is really daunting. Leave aside the financial.
And do you think it's unfair? Because when you travel to the United Kingdom, you'd be RT-PCR negative over here, you'd be RT-PCR negative over there, you would have a test after a second test, which would actually be a third test. And yet, and you're fully vaccinated now, or by the time you reach, and yet you have to go through this, while nationals of some countries don't.
Yeah, I understand. There are certain protocols regarding COVID and, like getting a double negative test and all of that. But then, I've literally tried my best. We made sure that we get the Covishield vaccine and not go for Covaxin because of the fact that I'm traveling abroad. And when I'm fully vaccinated, and it is going to be the same AstraZeneca vaccine, which, I mean, a lot of countries using that same vaccine under a different brand name, students from those countries are gonna, it's the government and the system is gonna be a little more lenient for them. I don't see why they cannot, if I actually give a COVID negative test to them when I get there. And especially when, like, you need to provide a negative report 48 hours before you're traveling. So technically when you reach there, you actually are not COVID positive. And I am completely vaccinated. Some sort of leniency could be shown.
Yeah, and I think the point that also needs to be mentioned is that Covaxin is now being assessed by the World Health Organization, and hopefully it will be included as a WHO accepted vaccine. And if that is the case, then many more students in our country who've been vaccinated, remember, you never had a choice about what to pick, and perhaps that's the right way to have done it, but all of those who've had Covaxin would have the opportunity of also studying, because now they can't even get to many countries, to the universities eventually, and that's a big problem. Well, I'd like to thank you both very much for being with us. We've got a few more students who want to talk to us. Again, this is an effort. We've reacted to what young students and their parents and others have been telling us, that it's very expensive, almost 2 lakhs for Indian students to be quarantined mandatorily in the United Kingdom for 10 days, locked up in a hotel, when they're fully vaccinated, they're RT-PCR negative. Is that fair at all? Does that make any sense? A reminder of what this very special program is all about. Now, we haven't forgotten about the plight of Indian students who have to cough up 1,750 pounds, that's nearly 2 lakh rupees, for a compulsory 10-day government-mandated quarantine in a hotel facility when they land in the United Kingdom. Why? Because India is on the UK's red list for entry, so even double vaccinated Indian students who clear RT-PCR tests before and after arrival go into what some say, and you've heard it on this program, is a jail stay. Imagine being a 19-year-old stuck in a room for 10 days, even though you don't have COVID. So we did a program in a sense similar to this a few days back, bringing to you the concerns of Indian students who say they may be out of pocket. Adar Poonawala happened to be watching, and so he decided that he had to step in to try and help. And now Adar's personal donation of 10 crore rupees, and this is from him, it's not from the Serum Institute, is meant to ensure that there is a plan in place to ensure that Indian students, the expenses of Indian students towards quarantine in the UK are covered. You can read all about it on ndtv.com/unlockeducation. We tell you who the big partners in this project are. If eligible, there may be a way for you to have your quarantine costs entirely paid for. So that's a saving of 2 lakh rupees, and you may want to look at that if you feel that you deserve that assistance. The NGO Sanmat and Keto are helping with this entire project, and we'd like to thank them very much for doing that. Before we end this program, 2 other students joining us. Neeraj joins us, as does Surbhi. I'd like to thank you both very much for being with us. Neeraj, is this a big financial hit for you? 1,750 pounds, nobody really expected this a few months back.
Definitely, sir. I mean, when we started looking at the funding options for the program, my offer was something that I had deferred from last year because of the pandemic. And this year, I applied to a bunch of scholarships, which really didn't work out. So I had to work on personal finances, and the quarantine cost was something that I didn't realize until the very end. And the cost is something that came as particularly as a surprise to a lot of us, because we thought that the UK government or the university would be subsidizing something like this, especially for students who are not vaccinated. In my personal case, I made sure that both my shots for the Covishield vaccines were covered. In spite of that, we have to quarantine for 10 days, and that's something that's quite shocking, especially because EU and US citizens who enter the UK with the same vaccine do not have the same conditions.
Right.
So that's something that's particularly shocking.
Now, Surbhi, you've come down from Jaipur, I believe, to get your tuberculosis test done. That's mandatory. It's always been the case to get a docket to a vignette, as it's known, to enter the United Kingdom. That's part of the process. And apart from the amount that you might have to spend on this quarantine, Surbhi, there is also a very substantial health surcharge, which is almost a couple of lakhs, which you're also paying, right? And that accounts for COVID. So it's gone up massively, right?
Yeah. So again, I think I agree with what the other panelist has said before. When we started looking at UK programs, we did not expect such costs. Even the health surcharge that we are paying is kind of unfair because it does not include a lot of prescription medicines and a lot of basic health needs. In that level, it's very superficial. It does not include dental procedures and a few other things. So basically, I'll have to shell out my own money for the health anyway. It is, as of now, including COVID, but seeing how the rules are changing left, right, and center, I think a concern of the student also is that if the situation in UK goes down even a little bit, that the health surcharge may not cover even the COVID thing, which is again thinking of the future, the cost is just increasing too much. Coming to the quarantine thing, I think another problem with quarantine, not just the cost, is the isolation that we'll have to face in a new country, being all alone. 10 days in a room, I think also.
Would you be able to quarantine with a friend or somebody you know, or would you should be be quarantining alone?
As of now, I think I'll be quarantining alone. I haven't made arrangements with a friend.
That's tough.
That is very tough because I have been in quarantine before, and I think you can just go very mad when you are.
When
alone.
were you in quarantine before?
My university had called us, started calling students back in batches, so we had to quarantine in our university, and that got extended because someone got COVID on my floor. So it was for 19 days I was in quarantine. So I know how that feels.
That's difficult. Neeraj, would you have a friend that you'd go with, or get hold of a friend and quarantine with them, bring down the costs possibly, and perhaps bring down your boredom as well?
So the problem is this, with me personally, because of certain scholarship decisions that were delayed, I started my loan processes and my financial options quite late. My friends and peers who are moving to the UK are moving next month. My process would take additionally a week or so. So I'm not really going during the period when everyone else is going. I have limited options of people I can quarantine with. I'm open to that idea. However, I still haven't figured out who I'm going to quarantine with. I would rather prefer quarantining with a person. But as I saw the earlier panelists on the show, and I was horrified with the kind of descriptions they were giving about the room. So I thought, it's better to find someone and then quarantine myself for 10 days.
But Neeraj, it has to be said that she did say that she had 3 pizzas today, so perhaps it wasn't that bad. But apparently there was salad served with some other salad the previous day or something like that. Look, I'd like to thank you all very much for being a part of this program. Again, the goal over here on this program is to help students who might find themselves out of pocket in paying this £1,750, £1,750 for this compulsory 10-day UK government managed quarantine in a hotel facility once they arrive in that country. As it is, Indian students are paying so much, many times what UK students pay for a foreign education. Is this fair at all? Well, there is help now. As we've said, get onto the NDTV website. There is a fund which has been established. You may be able to pay for that quarantine amount. Time now for us to take this short break.